Mother-in-law said that I ought to get involved. Well, by golly, I don't know about you and your mother-in-law, but if your mother-in-law tells you something like that, you want to stay on the good side of her, you know.
Right.
So I began to come to Bonnet House.
What was the interest that you had? What's the Bonnet House?
Well, I did a tour several years ago, brought my mother, and just fell in love with the place. It was so beautiful and unlike anything else you'll ever find in Fort Lauderdale. And it took me a few years, but I finally got to the time where I said, okay, I'm going back and volunteer.
Oh,
so
good.
I can spend more time.
After you became aware of the house, when did you actually become a volunteer?
Probably several months later. I had come back to the property with a lot of people, with some of our guests that were in town and stuff like that. And then I found out that there was a training class.
The wonderful thing that I love about volunteering and doing house tours or doing grounds tours is the people you meet. You meet people.
Interesting.
you meet people from all over the world.
But what makes you stay?
Because it is worth giving your time to preserve this. And I think I just mentioned that quite a few people have been in this area, lived here for most of their lives, and are unaware that this exists.
This is it.
And it truly is something that we should save and keep for our children to see.
Why should we continue to maintain this particular home?
Very specifically, it is a good look at the past. It's a true look at the past, although it's unique and unusual to see. It is a fine place for people to begin with a history lesson of what South Florida
Your
really
students.
is. Have you seen the kids come in here? You have to be here when the buses unload.
I have, yes.
Yeah, there's very little need to stimulate them.
So it's just a question
They are very happy to be in this area.
of bringing them here.
I think that's correct.
Do you think that will encourage others as they grow up, younger people, to realize that volunteering to help maintain this living estate is important?
Yeah, absolutely. If it becomes part of them when they're young, it should remain with them for the rest of their lives, which is what we do. But it's also, remember, the adults that come through who are snowbirds, and then they take their time through, and then I explain to them, you know, the evening activities that exist here. There's plenty of them, plenty of things to do. That is still an enjoyable part, and then they grow into really wanting to be here.
Right.
And don't forget, we have some very interesting people who volunteer and who work here, and it really helps you socially. I mean, it's a fine place to spend some
is there a lightness there?
Well,
what
look
do you
around.
love?
It just does something to you. I enjoy it.
So, your time, preserve this. And I think I just mentioned that quite a few people have been in this area, lived here. Don't forget, we have some very interesting people who volunteer and who work here, and it really helps you socially. I mean, it's a fine place to spend.
We always tell people to tell people. There's people that lived in Fort Lauderdale for 20 years and have never been here because it was a private residence, and that's how they still viewed it. I think that the interesting thing that a lot of people find out about volunteering is, and especially in a place like this, volunteering doesn't necessarily mean you have to do a house tour or you have to do a grounds tour. Okay. You can come up here, and if someone loves to garden but doesn't have a garden, you come here and garden. Because the gardens, everything needs to be worked on. There's only 7 people on staff here. Everybody else is a volunteer. So you could do whatever you want. If you wanted to clean up the property, or you wanted to wash the trams for the day. And some people come here for an hour, 2 hours, some come for the entire day to volunteer. So there's many levels of that. You don't, you know, it's not, well, if you come here, you have to learn the house tour.
What keeps you coming back?
My commitment to my mother-in-law for being a part of the family of Hugh Taylor Burge.
And here's a really good way for teachers to get involved. They can give extra credit to the students for showing up to meet interesting people like Claudia. I've really enjoyed it. And why not get some teachers over here too?
Well, if you get involved in teaching young people about, I'll come.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Claudia.
Oh, you're welcome. I enjoyed being